It's the final Wednesday of the year. And before we step into the last reflection of 2025, I want to thank you for being the soil that this show has grown in. If these stories have served you this year, please subscribe. It's how we keep the heart of this work beating as we move into a massive new year. Thank you for being here. Let's finish this year together. Happy New Year's Eve. Or for some of you, maybe it's just another Wednesday. For me, I woke up this Wednesday a little uneasy. And it was hard for me to sit in silence. I had to really push just to stay still and listen. And I've been wrestling with some journaling that I've been doing over the last few days. And the question that arose is, what is more scary? Letting go or becoming? And I realized that for 45 years, I've been choosing to hang on to the worst parts of me. And it's just to avoid the risk of becoming the version of me I was always meant to be. It sounds almost irrational when you say it out loud. That we would choose a familiar pain over an unknown joy. But here I sit, doing it every single day. And I think most of us have the innate ability to see ourselves in others. We are the mirrors for one another. But for a long time, I didn't use that for connection. I did not use that mirror properly. I used it for protection. It was easier for me to point out struggle in someone else's life because I didn't want to look at and admit that I had the same struggle going on in my own life. That it was just a reflection. We use judgment to keep the truth at a distance. That's a hard one. It's very true. Today is the final episode of Blessed and Grateful Wednesday of 2025. And I'm here because I'm finally listening to a version of myself I haven't heard since I was very young. I'm here to talk about that journey of letting go of who we think we should be so we can finally become who we already are. I'm Cory J. Riggs. Let's finish this year with the truth. Judgment versus reflection. And journaling and writing, as I've talked about in other pods, and actually one episode was the Blessed and Grateful Wednesday was about how grateful I was for my writing, because it just opens things up for me. It really brings clarity to a lot of things for me. And I've always had an intuition of others. And, you can call it whatever you will, the mirror, self-reflection. Some people call it the people who read tarot cards and things like that. But I've always had this odd ability to really read others very well. And I didn't use it always in good ways. For the most part, it was always for the other side, for look at that person, what they're doing. Look at that person, what they're doing. Oh, look at that. That job's horrible. I could do better. Things like that, right? Because I didn't want that look upon me. I felt it within myself. So I had to push it before it faced me. I didn't want to face it. And I found myself doing that a lot throughout the years. And it's really easy to reflect on once you start seeing it. And not just seeing it, but admitting it. And that's the hardest part of all of it, is admitting that what you see in somebody else is what you see in yourself. And that's why you don't like it. There's always that old saying that, the people that you don't like are more like you than you want to believe, kind of a saying, right? It's very true, especially for me. It's very, very true. And I've always found that ease to point out instead of point in. And it doesn't mean that when you're doing this, that person isn't doing that exact thing or acting that certain way or whatever the situation is. It just simply means that probably one of the biggest reasons it's really bothering you is because you see that same in yourself. So I'll challenge you and ask you to, what is something that you have maybe been judging or pointing out in someone else here lately? Have you been overcritical of someone here lately? Or, a coworker or someone in your family, it doesn't matter who. Pick something that's really been going through your head and the ego and really focusing on others rather than yourself. And then sit with that. Really sit with it in quiet and peace and see if you can find if maybe that's a self-reflection that you just don't want to see. It'll come up. And the ego will come up and try to argue and fight and tell you no, and try to bend the story your way. Try that. If there's something that you've been judging or someone that you've been judging pretty heavily lately or being overcritical of, sit with it. See if there's possibly a reflection of, yeah, I see that in myself as well. The choice to hold on is once your ego is awakened, right? We're born with both our truest self and a built-in ego that comes from generations of generations. Some people can believe in that. Some people, I strongly believe in it. I believe in generational trauma. I believe in generational events or characteristics, values, things like that are born within you from generations and generations. So you're born with both. And the longer that you're allowed to live without the ego having a lot of control, because most of us come out happy, free, right? Just joyous. And for the most part, we get to live that way for a while. Some of us get to live that way a long time. Some of us come out and we're not in very good situations right from the start. Right? And as I've mentioned, mine happened around 10. And that's when my ego said, all right, we are going to hide this. We are going to hide ourselves. We are going to protect. And I went into pure protection mode from that day on. Now, there was little steps into it, right? I was still young. I was still trying to figure out the world a little bit. But it's amazing how the insanity of life built from that moment and just stacked year after year after year. So I had to ask myself, what version of myself am I still carrying around that no longer serves me? And I'd love for you to ask yourself that. We all have many versions of ourselves that we have built through ego, through different parts of our life, maybe from a divorce, maybe from a trauma when you were young, maybe from a death that really hurt you in the family. It could be almost anything. Something that caused your ego to say, okay, I need to protect now. And I need to protect from this. So sit and try to find the version of you that you no longer need and you want to get rid of. Once you see that, it might even be easier to step back then. Okay, if that's the version of me that I no longer need, what created that version of me? Then I can step back further. Okay, now I can see when I'm doing this in this moment at this time. Now I know where it comes from. And you can kind of reverse engineer it, if you will. And why is it easier to stay in that familiar pain? That to me is one of the hardest questions that I've been writing about for the last 2 days. Why, if you say it out loud, I choose to be negative and angry and bitter, or you pick whatever you want to say. I choose to be this and it's nothing really good, over being myself, being a kind person, trying to live a joyous, happy life. Who would ever pick the anger side? It's just amazing to me that we as humans have an ego that's strong. And that's where I go back to, that ego's been around in your makeup well before you were ever born. It was carried and handed down and carried and handed down. And it's just sitting in you waiting to grow. And once it's awakened, we definitely help it grow. And it's just doing its job. It's just built to protect us from the things that we think we need protection from. And it's amazing when you find out, I can probably be okay and protect myself and deal with it and feel the pain a little bit and move through it and heal. It's hard getting there, and that ego's strong. Very strong. So finding the real messages inside, the soul of your existence, right? The soul, your heart, I always point to this area. I believe strongly that this is where your truest self speaks to you, right? Through your soul. I also believe, right, God, the creator of everything, the universe, whatever you want to phrase that, that's where they all meet. And that's where those messages come from. That's where I feel them, for sure. And I remember I can look back through many years of my life and see times that it was reaching out saying, hey, bud, here's who you are. And there was a time in 6th grade. So, just a couple years removed. I sang in the talent show of my 6th grade class. There's no way I could stand in front of a class right now and sing. I've tried karaoke before when I was still married a while back, and nothing hardly came out of my mouth. I tried. And then in 8th grade, I was always in music and things. I loved music. And the funny thing about this is one of my brothers, because my dad was very musically gifted, he passed it on to all of us. And I have a brother that is absolutely gifted as an artist, musician, singer, actor, he's very, very good. And I used to give him so much grief about it. Again, there's the mirror. Because in 8th grade, I was in a school play. And a lot of us were in it just because it was part of our class grade. I enjoyed it. I wanted to be in that. I tried it again in my sophomore year of high school, trying to be in a play. And then that's where I gave up. That's where I was done. I wasn't fitting in any longer with the athletes, the cool guys, all that kind of stuff, right? But it was in my head, not theirs, not anybody else's. And if I really look back at my brother, I can admit the jealousy of it, that he was willing to do that through his high school year, no matter what people said, no matter what people thought, because he loved it and it made him happy. So there was definitely that part of me. And that's a very easy way to see that mirror that I speak of. Why was I picking on him for being a musician? Think about why. Makes zero sense. And then I want to say 8th grade. There was a girl in my life. She was a very good friend of mine. Not a girlfriend, just a girl. And she was a friend. But she saw the pain in me. And I believe, again, because it was her mirror speaking to me as well. And we became very good friends. If you would look at this on paper, there would be no reason for it as far as who we were, where we came from, things like that. But I'd write her poetry. And she shared a lot of her life with me. She took me to a movie that made me a Prince fan. Her mom actually took us to the movie because it was rated R and got us in. And that's the reason I'm a Prince fan. He's sitting right here. That's the reason why purple is my favorite color. But I wrote her all kinds of poetry all the time. Who knows if it was good or not, but she embraced it and we were very good friends. But I never shared that with anybody. Then she moved, and my freshman year in a choir competition, I met another young lady that I did have a crush on, and nothing ever came from that. But I was writing her poetry. I mean, her and I hung out and were very good friends throughout my whole high school year. I was a year older than her. I wrote her poetry all the time. It never got out. No one ever saw it. No one ever heard about it. But that was the true me. And I was only willing to show it to the people that I mirrored, that we shared a pain of some sort, that we had that connection. And who knows where I'd be if I would have followed that then. But I was so afraid of the judgment of not being Rigo, of not being one of the guys. And that's what I go back to of who would pick being miserable just to appease others and shrink yourself when you're doing something over here that makes you purely happy and it's giving other people joy, not just yourself. It's just amazing to me. Who in your life has seen you for who you truly are? We all have them. And there's more than that. The mother of my children saw that. She got a lot of that writing. She knows everything about me. There's a few people in your life that you can probably look back to and say, yeah, they saw me for exactly who I was, and they loved me anyway. Think about that and find that person in your life and think about that. I'm really hoping that one day, because I am Facebook friends with some of the people that I'm talking about here, that they see this because they'll know who they are. And they're not unforgotten. I reflect on that kind of stuff a lot now because I wish I would have followed it further. I just wasn't ready to, and that's fine. Have you allowed yourself to accept that version of you? Have you allowed yourself to accept that version of you? Maybe not then. How about now? Can you sit and be okay with who that person is? Or are you trying to still be what the world expects you to be? That's the only questions you can answer. You have to answer those for yourself. I know I am accepting that person. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I enjoy it. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy writing. I'm going to continue. I'm okay with that. And I've taken some bullets in here. I've had some bad comments from people about nonsense. And that's just okay. That's the way the world is. But once you get to where you accept it yourself, nobody can hurt you with their words at all. It might sting a little bit at first, but then you realize, you know what, that's just the nonsense. So where this has all been bringing me and what season 2 is going to kind of be about. So I'm going to go yearly on my season. So 2026, I start season 2. And I'm calling it the industrial arc. And for me, the mission of my podcast and the mission of my writing and my work in general is to bring the soul back and put humanity in front of technology, AI, and try to get the elders and the Gen Xers, all of us, the older parents and grandparents of the world, to really dig in and find our souls again and speak to the youth and speak to the babies that are being born now. Because if you look back at the history of life, and I'm just going to go back a little over 100 years, late 1800s to early 1900s, the Industrial Revolution, right, where steel was booming, they were building the railways, right? And if you watch documentaries or shows or read about this, I'm just going to give you some parallels. The wealthiest of wealthy ran everything. What's that sound like today with the tech guys? They had the influence on the president and politicians. What does that sound like today? And I'm not picking either side. Both sides do it. So I'm not saying one side or the other. It's just about the power. The people in power ran everything, made all the decisions for everybody. There is a massive gap between the extremely wealthy and simply the average American who works every day. Does it seem a little familiar at all? But what happened? So as those Rockefellers and all them moved on and got older and passed it down to their children or sold it or what have you, the next generation was there to clean it up. And it wasn't pretty, just like it wasn't pretty getting through it. It was very rough times getting through all that. There was a lot of fighting, a lot of turmoil in this country. Not just this one, but we're going to talk United States. Sound familiar? And then the next generation had to come in, clean it up. How do we get everybody back together? How do we get some kind of social system that doesn't take away from people making the money that they want to make, but also doesn't allow the people who work hard every day to starve and be homeless and not survive? Sound familiar? I'm just saying. So the industrial arc, and it's happened before that, but this is something that I think most of us can think about because, one, we learned about it in history. I know they may not teach that stuff anymore, but we learned it. There was a very, very cool show on HBO called The Gilded Age about this. It was very awesome. There's been movies. There's been a lot of different things on this. But if you look at the arc of that, we are in a very similar arc. The billionaires of the world, they run this place. They make the decisions. There's no governing over them for the most part. They get to just kind of run free. They have power, they have money, they have influence. And it takes, unfortunately, people like to do that. I won't say like that because they're not bad people. It takes people to do that, to take the world to another evolution, to evolve to greater things. Look how far we've come since all of that. It's amazing. I use AI every day between my career and building PowerPoints and things like that. I use AI every single day of my life. I think it's a very beneficial tool. Extremely. I think it's very powerful. I think it can help us revolutionize the work industry. And at the same time, it's very scary. It is taking jobs, but it's also creating jobs. And we'll get to that point. Then people are scared of robots taking over. And I mean, Bill Maher will just flat out, they're going to kill us all. Is that possible? I have no idea. Possible? Yes. Will it happen? No idea. But we're the humans who created it. It's not our ruler, and we can't allow it to rule us. We cannot allow any industrial revolution or any industrial arc or any new technology to be greater than human. It has no soul. It cannot have a soul for conversation of real and true experiences in life. There's not one AI that can tell you the story of my life the way I tell it. It can tell you my story. If I dump my writing and all my work into it, it can tell you my story. But it can't have the emotion. It can't have the inflections. It can't have the realness, the honesty, the tears. Can't have any of that. So for me, and I've been in IT for a long time. That's been my career for many, many years. It has to stay human in front. The humans have to make sure that it stays compartmentalized, it stays safe, it stays organized, it stays governed. It has to be a tool to help us. It has to be a tool that we use to build things, to invent, to revolutionize and speed up processes. It should not be our friend. It should not be our lover. It should not be a companion. And the funny part of that one is I've had a conversation with my sister, and before that, what spurred it is I was at a young man's basketball game, a kid I used to coach, and I went to his basketball game, was talking to his mom and dad, and I don't know how, well, the dad's into IT as well. We got all talking, AI came up, and we started getting into geriatrics, and I could actually see an argument of having it in facilities for the people who don't have family that come visit them. I've seen this. My dad was in a nursing home for many, many years. My grandmother was in a nursing home for many, many years, decade. I've seen people wither away and nothing because they have nobody that comes and talks to them outside of the staff and maybe their neighbors. And they're not in the right mind for the most part. But if we're going to have that, it has to be governed. It has to be safe. It can't be scamming them. It can't be trying to get their money. It can't be anything except a friend. I can actually see that. But an 18-year-old kid should not be have an AI companion, a friend. And we need to get back to that place in the world because we're getting so far from it. And it's very, very dangerous. And the further we get away from it, if that next generation coming up, if those babies of today, the 14, 13s and unders to babies and some of the ones that aren't even born yet, they need to be shown what humanity means. They need to show what it means to have a relationship with the human being. They need to know what it means to have relationships with their grandparents and their aunts and uncles and the elders of the world. They need that experience, and they can use that to continue to build on the technology, but to keep humanity in front, to keep our souls preserved. And as the world moves faster toward technology and AI, what are you doing to protect your own heartbeat? How can we lead with humanity today? Those are two very, very serious questions that I ask myself that I've been writing about. How do we lead with humanity? That's one of my biggest ones. Humanity has to come back. It will, but it's up to us to really dive in and help them, young kids, not just them, help ourselves, because we have to find our souls again. We're divisive over religion. We're divisive over politics. We're divisive over wealth. Everything's about me and my group. My group's right, your group's wrong. We're better than you, you're doing the wrong way. You can only get to heaven this way. Well, they say that you can only get to heaven this way. They say heaven doesn't even exist. And it doesn't matter of any of that. We can have different beliefs. I remember a time on this earth, I didn't know any of my friends' political views, their parents' political views. And I'm not saying that that's not everybody. Where I grew up, I had no idea. None. It didn't come up. You watch the news, you watch presidential races, things like that. But you didn't fight and argue. People just had conversations. Remember the old saying? Don't speak about religion and don't speak about politics, and you'll always keep a friend. That's the only way to get a friend now. You have to. I can only be friends with, and I'm not saying that I can only be friends with a person who thinks just like me. There's no way I could date somebody who doesn't believe in this because I believe in that. That's a very unhealthy place. We have to be able to disagree. We have to be able to have different beliefs. We have to have different systems and processes of doing things. Because if we don't, we all try to do the same thing the same way, it's not going to grow properly. It's not going to be successful. Everyone needs their hands in AI. Everyone needs their hands in technology. Whatever is big and growing, we all need our hands in it. We can't just follow them. We have to learn how to lead them, and we have to learn how to lead from a place from the heart and from the soul. This is a mission of mine. This mission came to me within the last week or two, and it got very, very strong in my writing. I believe it to my core that that's the answer. How we get there, I wish I had that answer. The one thing that I do know, though, is if we can get back to being civil, understanding, with the ability to agree to disagree, to put down our arms, and just have a conversation, that's the place that I don't have a fear of where this world's going. And we can get there. It starts with each one of us. I'll be doing the work. I want you to do the work. I will help in any way, shape, or form with anybody in this world to help do this work. We have to come together, because the other part of this that I can see, the world's going to become a smaller place, meaning, yes, there's still going to be states and countries and things like that, but something like AI, guys, that's going to have to be governed almost at a world level to a point. How else can it not be? We almost have to treat it as some of the weapons and nuclear weapons and things like that we've governed in certain ways, right? There has to be governing bodies throughout the world that all agree and put their heads together and make this all work. But we can't do that until we can fix us. We can't do that until each one of us do the best that we can to fix everything within us and try to make ourselves whole. And just be kind. Listen. That is where we start. And let everything else fall where it's going to fall. Because I can't tell you one thing that has ever fallen improperly from kindness. I simply can't. So as we are navigating an era where AI and technology are shifting the ground beneath our feet, there's a lot of fear. There's a ton of fear about where it's taking us, fear of losing jobs, our purpose, and our connection. And while these tools can help us in so many ways, they can never reach into the quiet spaces of our heart. They can't. Humanity is the key. On Sunday, we're launching a journey on this show that I'm calling the Industrial Arc. And this is the work we're going to do together. The world and the work of bringing the world back into humanity, back in front of technology and AI. My goal for the next season is to ensure that we are leading with our hearts, so we can teach the younger generation how to do the same. We need to lead by example. We have to show them how to keep humanity at the center, so they don't just improve the technology, but they improve the world we all have to live in. We've built these massive egos to protect ourselves. And once that ego is awakened, it feels like it's been there forever. But you were born with the truest part of you already intact. Whether you are looking at the end of the year or the arc of your whole life, the choice is the same. Do we stay stuck in the versions of ourselves that no longer serve us? Or do we have the courage, and I use courage a lot, to take the next step forward? It's not rational to hold on to the worst part of us, yet we do it every day to avoid the vulnerability of being our best selves. Let's stop that cycle. Turn the mirror around. Look at yourself with a little more empathy and a lot more honesty. And I'll be right there doing the same thing. On Sunday, the work begins. We're going to find our way back to what makes us human. I'll see you in the new year. I love you all. Be blessed.